Order. Seamus Logan to move the motion.
Thank you, Sir John. It's always a pleasure to serve under you and to introduce this debate. We are focusing today on the use of animals in scientific research and the most recent Animals in Science Regulation Unit Annual Report for 2024, published in December 2025. Now, the subject is important to me, it's important to many of my constituents, and possibly important to up to half the population of these islands who have the pleasure, nay, the privilege, of sharing their lives with a pet. Now, at the outset, Sir John, I wish to pay tribute to the work of the Honourable Member for North Ayrshire and Arran, who leads the APPG on phasing out experimentation in animal research, and also to the work of the Animal Free Research Group and their Chief Executive, Carla Owen, who is here today in the Visitors' Gallery and who was behind the Herbie's Law campaign. Unfortunately, Herbie has passed now at this stage, but the campaign lives on. And also want to thank Cruelty Free International, who continue to champion the ending out of animal research worldwide. Now, in this debate, I want to focus on the regulations that surround this topic, especially the shocking failings to protect animals from undue suffering because of weak oversight, I believe, in the maintenance of these regulations. This has been highlighted in the Home Office report. The findings show just how much we are failing to prevent animal suffering when used in scientific experiments due to incidences of non-compliance with the law or licence conditions. This report focuses on numerous incidents across 2024, which included, sadly, Sir John, animals starving to death or drowned in some cases, while other animals were put into waste bags by mistake, and some being kept alive beyond humane endpoints. Now, the incidents in this report make for upsetting reading. As a supporter of phasing out animal experimentation in medical research and the urgency in which I believe this transition should be addressed, the very least we can do in the meantime for these animals used in laboratories is to ensure their welfare and minimise their suffering. It's important to put the issue into context. In 2024, 2.64 million procedures using animals took place in UK labs. That's 5 animals used in research every minute of every day, and represents a decrease of only 1.21% as compared to 2023. I will, of course.
Thank you, and I thank the Honourable Member for giving way. Isn't it the case that progress on replacing the use of animals in science remains only incremental, with over 2.6 million procedures and only a small year-on-year decrease, when what is needed is a truly transformational shift? Does the member accept that unless urgent and ambitious progress is made, public confidence will continue to be undermined in this particular issue?
Mention, and I completely agree with them. That is the point that I'm trying to draw out here. Yes, 2,646 procedures on dogs and 1,936 on non-human primates. Now, examples of these procedures include non-human primates being subjected to invasive brain surgery and deprived of fluid to induce them to perform behavioural tasks. Mice being given psychostimulant rewards, such as cocaine or amphetamine, and this under licensed conditions. However, the ASRU report has highlighted incidences where compliance with these licensed conditions was not followed, such as failure to provide adequate care, failure to provide food and water, the most basic welfare needs for these animals held in laboratories across the UK. One very distressing incident reported a mother removed from its cage and killed, resulting in unweaned pups starving to death. In 2024, there were 146 cases of non-compliance in British laboratories, a 16% decrease from the 169 cases reported in 2023. I will.
First of all, can I commend the Honourable Jim for Aberdeen North and Moray East for bringing this forward? And he's right to do so, and he's right to say many people are concerned. Between 2018 and 2022, only 12% of animal welfare convictions in Northern Ireland resulted in a custodial sentence. It is clear that councils and enforcement bodies need greater funding to gather evidence, for the evidence is critical or for successful prosecutions. It does, honourable member, not agree that one takeaway from this report that he's referring to is that we can and should do more to protect animal welfare where possible, and government needs to raise the priority for it.
Seamus Logan.
Member for his intervention. I completely agree, although he is addressing the wider issue of animal welfare, and my focus today is on this report. Nevertheless, he's absolutely right in his point. So I was talking about non-compliance. The cases involved a total of 22,000, more than 22,000 animals, including mice, rats, fish, cows, sheep, frogs, guinea pigs, bats, dogs, non-human primates, cats, a hamster and a rabbit. Chair, these are the reported incidents, I might add. 68 establishment audits were conducted for this report. 68. However, only 3% of cases of non-compliance were identified by the audits, and 69% were self-reported. This can hardly be described as a robust inspection system. In 75% of cases, 3/4, the only sanction was inspector advice. The ASRU is responsible for licensing animal experiments in the UK to protect animals in science and ensure compliance with the Animals Scientific Procedures Act 1986. This means following the principles known as the 3 Rs: replacement, reduction and refinement. In other words, use non-animal methods where possible, reduce the number used to a minimum, and refine procedures to minimise suffering. I know from visits undertaken by the APPG, which I referred to earlier, that there is a growing use of laboratory-grown human tissue for use in experimentation, and we need to support this as parliamentarians. The UK Government has stated that the Home Office is in the final stages of delivering a comprehensive programme of regulatory reform to further strengthen the ASRU, ensure confidence in the regulatory system and maintain robust compliance with the Act that I referred to. These reforms include increasing the number of full-time inspectors by March of this year. But I would argue that this internal reform does not go far enough. These incidences of non-compliance show that increasing the number of inspectors alone may not result in meaningful change. I mentioned 2.64 million procedures taking place each year, and we cannot rely solely on a few more full-time inspectors to turn this situation around. And I note that the Minister is listening very carefully to what I'm saying. Labour's publication last November of its strategy to support the development, validation and uptake of alternatives to the use of animals in science is very welcome. But meaningful change will not occur without a series of more robust measures. And the difficulty here, colleagues, is, I believe, that the UK is in danger of falling behind other international partners in the European Union and, very interestingly, in the US, where they are speeding forward within 3 to 5 years to remove the requirement for animals to be used in research. So it's very strange that we're, in this instance, we appear to be falling behind internationally. Now, while the strategy is committed to increasing funding for human-specific technologies, founding a UK Centre for the Validation of Alternative Methods and setting up a cross-governmental ministerial committee to oversee implementation, it contains no timeline for phasing out of all animal experiments. As a member of the APPG on phasing out these experiments, we have discussed implementing Herbie's Law as a practical pathway to phase out animal testing in collaboration with the scientific community. Legal experts have prepared a draft of Herbie's Law titled the Human-Specific Technologies Bill, describing how government could ensure progress, how scientists could be supported, and with detail on setting up an expert advisory committee to give specialist advice on animal replacement. I think I speak for many attending this debate today when I see that we are keen to see an end to animal suffering in medical research. Now, the report's findings, the ASRU report, are a stark reminder of what is at stake for those animals when this law is broken, or when licence conditions are not followed, or when measures to ensure compliance are not as robust as they could be. The UK has an opportunity here to not only secure our position as a global leader in animal protection and scientific innovation, but to end animal suffering in scientific research. And in conclusion, Mr. Chairman, this of course can only be ensured by a full transition from animal experimentation across the next decade. The report by the ASRU is a stark reminder that until this transition is in place, we will continue to fail animals in laboratories across the UK. Thank you.
Thank you. I remember members they should bob, but I can see 4 members already know that. The question is that this House has considered the Animals in Science Regulation Unit Annual Report 2024. Ruth Jones.
Thank you, Sir John, and it's a real pleasure to serve under your chairmanship this afternoon. And I'd also like to pay tribute to the Honourable Member for Aberdeenshire North and Moray East for securing this really important debate. As he said, the 2024 annual report of the ASRU makes very grim reading. The 146 reported cases of non-compliance with legal requirements of licensing conditions highlight an ongoing failure to prevent appalling animal suffering in laboratories. And as he's already said, this includes extreme cases of animals drowning or starving to death. It remains shocking that the ASRU continues to grant scientific licences to allow animals to be deliberately deprived of food and water. Other worrisome incidents include cases of 2 cats and 4 dogs being kept in substandard facilities, including a pen that was too small. Another dog was kept alive longer than authorised, resulting in significant unnecessary suffering. 2 primates were also reported to have been left without food overnight, with another 2 being injured whilst being caged. In total, the ASRU report identifies at least 542 animals dying or being euthanised following issues of non-compliance. The report's detailed account of the suffering of 22,000 animals comes in stark contrast to our much-lauded identity as a nation of animal lovers, and our national reputation as a world leader on animal welfare legislation, particularly in relation to the use of animals in science, is in real jeopardy, as the Honourable Member opposite has already highlighted. We are falling behind. Despite its content of this report, though, I do welcome the report. If Britain is to remain a world leader on animal welfare, transparency around breaches of animal welfare standards is critical. It ensures accountability and allows both the public and lawmakers to routinely assess the adequacy of existing enforcement. But at the moment, I can only conclude, having read the report, that the ASRU is in urgent need of reform. Because despite issuing 15,626 licences at the end of 2024, the ASRU only had 8.2 full-time equivalent inspectors. With the number of licences granted per inspector at its highest since 2012, there are serious concerns about the capacity of the ASRU to ensure effective compliance. Just 68 establishments were inspected in 2024, and only 10 of these were unannounced. So I'm therefore asking the Minister what steps the Government is taking to reform the ASRU and improve the resourcing of its audits. With 69% of non-compliance incidents in 2024 were self-reported, I worry that the extent of welfare breaches go far beyond this, and the culture in our scientific institutions around safeguarding animal welfare and preventing undue suffering is under inspection at the moment. So I would be grateful if the Minister in her speech could reflect on this pattern of self-reporting and outline what steps the Government is taking to support a culture of safeguarding animal welfare within licensed organisations. The adage, prevention is better than cure, fits very well here. Whilst enforcing needs strengthening and is of ongoing concern, the best way to manage the risk to animals through non-compliance is to stop animals being used in scientific testing. As the Honourable Member opposite already said, the 3 Rs of replacement, reduction and refinement is already a legal requirement under the Animal Scientific Procedures Act. Nevertheless, the embedding of this approach needs strengthening. I do welcome the Government's new Replacing Animals in Science strategy and its recognition of the need to strengthen the ethical review approval process to ensure that animals are only used when there is no alternative, in line with the findings of the Royal Report. Whilst the commitments in this strategy are ambitious, I believe we can go further. Embedding the targets to phase out routine tests prioritised as part of Baskets 1 and 2 in the law would provide absolute certainty to both the scientific community and campaigners of our commitment to end the use of animals in testing. Such a step could also crowd in wider investment in UK scientific research, strengthening our position as a global leader in the development of animal-free testing methods. So I would therefore urge the Minister to commit to introducing Herbie's Law and enshrining the targets committed to in recent strategies in legislation. So John, in closing, this 2024 report must be a catalyst for change. We must bear down on those who continue to neglect their responsibilities to uphold animal welfare with better enforcement and harsher penalties. Whilst doing this, we cannot and should not neglect the fact that only the long-term solution to this avoidable suffering is to end animal testing once and for all. Thank you.
Brian Leishman.
Good afternoon, Sir John. It is a pleasure to serve with you in the chair today, and my thanks go to the honourable member for Aberdeenshire North and Moray East for bringing this debate to Westminster Hall. I'd like to add my appreciation to everyone he mentioned at the start of his excellent speech. I don't know of a bigger animal lover than my friend from North Ayrshire in Arden, and I'd like to thank her for all the work that she does with an excellent APPG. As I said in a different debate yesterday, everything comes down to what kind of society we want to live in. And this topic is no different. Currently, we live in a country that tolerates and sanctions experimentations that leads to pain, mutilation, intense suffering, and ultimately the grotesque and very avoidable deaths of animals in laboratories. Over 2.6 million scientific procedures involving living animals were carried out in the UK in 2024. That figure shocked me. It is utterly appalling. And, like the Minister answering for the government here today, as Labour candidates we stood on a manifesto that committed to working towards phasing out animal testing. But in 2025, it was approved that over 5 million animals would be used in experiments over the coming years. That simply has to change. In a debate last week, I made an intervention regarding passing Herbie's Law. And I say to the Minister that if we are going to meet our manifesto commitment, then passing Herbie's Law, it really is a must. We should move towards more modern, relevant and human-specific technologies, for both the animals' sake and for people that are needing or will need treatments in the future. So, John, as I said earlier, it is a question of what kind of society do we want to live in, and the moral case is surely reason enough. It is basic human decency to know that there should be an end to animal experimentation. But, as with everything, for things to change for the better, then there really must be the political will to make it so. So I implore the Minister and our government to get behind Herbie's Law. It's the right thing for the animals, it's popular, and by adopting it, we'd be making a genuine difference in changing the country for the better.
Thank you. I think now we'll have Irene Campbell.
Thank you, Sir John. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I would like to thank the member for Aberdeen North and Moray East for securing this important debate and setting out the argument so well. I would obviously like to declare my interest as chair of the APPG on phasing out animal experiments in medical research. And as some here may already know, I've been a vegan since 1993, and this is a topic that I really do feel very passionate about. I've spoken on this issue several times, and it really doesn't get any easier. And in a previous debate on testing on dogs, I quoted a debate from the other place from 1927, which said, "Experiments on dogs may now be discontinued. All that can be found out by physiological experiments for application to human beings has long since been discovered, and repetitions are unnecessary and cruel." And it's really sad to think that we are still debating this topic almost 100 years later. As a Scottish MP, I was particularly concerned to see that in 2024, over 200,000 experiments were carried out on animals in Scotland. This was an 8.2% decrease from the previous year. However, compared to Wales, which had a 16.7% decrease in experiments from 2023, and although I welcome the decreases, it must definitely be much quicker. The Animals in Science Regulation Unit report from 2024, as we've heard today, showed that 189 animals experienced adverse welfare outcomes. 54 of these cases were due to failure to provide adequate care, and 9 were due to failure to provide food and water, sometimes for up to 5 days. These cases of non-compliance are particularly concerning, and we also need to look at how well standards are being enforced in testing facilities, as we've very much heard already today. And given that almost 70% of cases were self-reported, this just isn't good enough, and we really have to look at another way to do this. I was glad to see the government's strategy in replacing animals in science come out last November, and in particular welcome the £75 million of funding for new testing methods and the establishment of a UK Centre for the Validation of Alternative Methods. However, I was disappointed to see missed opportunities around, for example, the forced swim test and the LD50 test. However, it is vital that timelines are introduced to enable a true phasing out of animals in medical research, and I'm looking forward to hearing the Minister's response today.
Thank you. Navendu Mishra.
Thank you, Sir John. It's a pleasure to serve in this debate with you. And can I thank the Honourable Member from Aberdeenshire North for securing this debate. We come from different political traditions, but on this issue, I think we are united in terms of animal testing. In my constituency inbox, I often receive emails and letters about animal rights, animal testing, so it's an issue that's important to the people of Stockport. Being the last backbench speaker in this debate, Sir John, all the points I wanted to make have already been covered, so I will keep my remarks brief, but can I also place on record my thanks for my good friend from North Asia and Aran for all the work she does on this issue. So, John, can I also invite you to join the plant-based parliamentary group that she runs, in addition to all the other work she does for her constituency and the APPG roles? I'm sure you'll be very welcome at the next meeting. I'll keep my remarks brief, as I said, but sadly the reality is, Sir John, that in 2024, I apologise, 2.64 million scientific procedures involving living animals were carried out in Britain, including 2,646 procedures on dogs and almost 1,936 procedures on non-human primates. These figures are quite significant. I would also like to add, I think these are the figures that we know about, and because of the lack of resources, many would argue, including myself, there might be more procedures and testing going on illegally that we don't know about. So this is an important issue. Look, I'm proud to have been the Labour candidate for in 2017 general election, 2019 and 2024, and we stood on a manifesto commitment to work towards phasing out animal testing. And sadly, as I've just said, you know, in 2025, almost 5 million animals were used in experiments over the coming years. So I think the government does need to pay attention to this issue and prioritise tackling this. I think the point about Herbie's Law has been reiterated by pretty much all my colleagues who have spoken, and I think the government should work towards introducing Herbie's Law into legislation as soon as possible without delay. I also think all 650 MPs in this House of Commons would be proud of Britain's heritage when it comes to innovation, when it comes to medical research, when it comes to technological research, and we should harness that when it comes to animal-free testing and humane testing. And the UK has an opportunity, Britain has an opportunity to be a global leader in this field and to cut out the senseless suffering that goes on. I'll just come to the conclusion of my remarks, but you know, over 92% of drugs that show promise in animal testing currently fail to reach the clinical and benefit patients, mostly for reasons of poor efficacy and safety that were not predicted by animal testing. This point has also been made, but can I place on record in Hansard my thanks to Animal Free Research UK, the charity that has done so much work on this issue. I'm just in the process of reading a fantastic book called The Rat Trap by Dr. Pandora Pound, and I think Dr. Pound is involved in the Safer Medicines Trust, so I look forward to learning more about the work they're doing. But once again, I think this debate is important. The figures are quite stark, and I hope the government will take urgent action. Thank you, Sir John.
We now move to the front bench speeches. Liberal Democrat spokesman, Ben Maguire.
Thank you, Sir John. And as always, it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I'd like to congratulate the honourable member from Aberdeenshire North and Moray East for securing this really important debate today, and also to all of the speakers that have participated. I thought all of the speakers today had really powerful contributions and useful contributions to the debate. The member from Aberdeenshire North powerfully highlighted some of the horrific and unacceptable treatment of animals in research. My party, the Liberal Democrats, are champions of animal rights, and so I'm proud to speak on behalf of the hundreds of animal rights campaigners from my own North Cornwall constituency today. And I must just add, Sir John, a special mention of my constituent from Bude, Steph Jones-Giles, who's a true animal rights champion and has spoken to me about this on many, many occasions. And I can also see Isabel Martin here today from Animal Free Research UK, who's an excellent advocate as well on this issue. Fundamentally, Liberal Democrats believe this country should expect only the absolute highest standards of animal welfare in the scientific experimentation and cosmetic industries. We want to get this country back on track as a world leader in this area, taking concrete steps to raise standards of animal welfare and getting the balance right. This latest annual report by the Animals in Science Regulation Unit, the subject of our debate today, shows a number of welcome steps and intentions facing the right direction of travel, and rightly places a strong focus on avoiding the use of animals in scientific testing wherever possible. I'm proud that we Liberal Democrats are at the forefront of raising these issues, with Lord Clement Jones, a colleague of mine from the other place, applying the right pressure to ensure regulation in this area remains precise and adequate, with encouragement to properly prevent and punish any non-compliance, which has been mentioned by many honourable members today, that causes undue harm to animals. It is, however, very alarming to read in this latest report of the 146 cases of non-compliance across the 2024 calendar year. And as many members have pointed out today, that's only the cases that have been reported. While marking a drop in cases compared to the previous year, these were largely around failures to provide proper care, like food and water, as we've already heard, to the animals being tested on, and other failures to adhere to the strict licence conditions. These countless cases of malpractice involved over 22,000 individual animals, with most of these being mice. It's a truly shameful statistic. In October 2024, the Regulation Unit made some welcome reforms, increasing their team of full-time inspectors, establishing a new governance board for the unit for greater oversight, which has made a welcome and positive impact. On a wider point, I'm proud to have voted against the draconian measures that were put before the House just over 2 weeks ago, along with my Liberal Democrat colleagues, standing firm against expansion of the Public Order Act 2023, which bans legitimate and peaceful animal rights protests from taking place, and criminalise those activists demanding better welfare for animals involved in testing. Let me just reiterate that once more. I'm talking about peaceful campaigners, Sir John, raising genuine ethical concerns, treated very similar to terrorists under the guise of threats to our national security. Time and time again in years gone by, the Conservative Party undermined our right to peaceful protest by introducing sweeping, overreaching powers that go far beyond what's needed to maintain public safety. The police already had strong powers to deal with dangerous or obstructive behaviour before the current government and their Conservative predecessors imposed these totally unnecessary extra measures. I'd just like to briefly refer to some of the honourable members' speeches. The honourable member for Newport West highlighted starvation and injury of primates, and again the possible underreporting of non-compliance in the self-reporting system we find ourselves with, meaning that we may only have just scratched the surface of this illegal animal abuse. The honourable member for Allura and Grangemouth made a powerful case highlighting 5 million animals to be used in experiments in the coming years, and also made a powerful case for Herbie's Law. The honourable member for North Ayrshire and Arran has been a long-standing champion on this issue, and I think I'm already a member of her APPG, but if I'm not, I'll make sure to join. And the honourable member for Stockport mentioned how more than 2,500 experiments have been made on dogs and over 1,000 on primates, and again highlighted cases which haven't been reported. Liberal Democrats are unapologetic in wanting to see minimal use of animals in scientific testing and the phasing out of testing altogether wherever possible and as soon as possible. And we would just urgently call on the government to provide greater funding into viable alternatives. To finish, in her wind-ups, will the Minister please commit to a full new animal health and welfare bill which looks at the wider issue of animal welfare and delivers a comprehensive national strategy to safeguard animal well-being in this sector? As part of their ongoing reset talks with the European Union, will the government sign a veterinary and phytosanitary agreement as soon as possible to ensure closer alignment on both standards and quality with the trading bloc? And finally, will the government commit to solidifying minimum standards for all imported food so that our own animal standards are met by every other nation looking to do business, and prevent our British farmers from being undercut from poorer quality foreign imports that don't have the same standards? Thank you.
This is Opposition Spokesman Alicia Kearns.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Sir John, and can I thank the honourable gentleman for securing this debate and for all members who spoke today. There are few issues that reflect our values as a society more than how we treat creatures in our care. And many people in our communities and across our countries rightly feel very strongly about this. And it's clear from the debate today that members from all parties share concerns for animal welfare. Animal testing should be a last resort, only when there are no viable alternatives, and this was certainly the view of the last Conservative government. We did not just talk about the 3 Rs, replacement, reduction and refinement, but we legally embedded them into the very fabric of our regulatory framework. We backed this with £90 million in research and a £27 million further fund called the Crackit Challenges Innovation Scheme, as well as doubling annual investment to £20 million for the 2024-25 fiscal year. We also refused to vote for bans on protests outside animal testing sites. So I'd be grateful if the Minister could confirm whether the levels of investment we left in place have been maintained and what steps are being taken to accelerate the development of alternatives. Turning to the annual report, these are figures which warrant rigorous scrutiny, and I welcome, of course, the fact that the number of animals experiencing adverse welfare outcomes has fallen, but the statistics on non-compliance make for very difficult reading. As we heard, 146 cases of non-compliance across 45 different establishments, and 63 of those involved a failure to provide basic care, such as food, water or suitable facilities. But the unacceptable incidents highlighted by members during their speeches today are harrowing. Unweaned pups starving to death after their mother was killed, mice left without water for 5 days, and live animals accidentally placed in waste bags. These are not administrative oversights. They are what should be criminal acts. These animals are supposed to be protected under our regulatory system, and concerningly, 75% of cases are resolved with inspector advice alone. So does the Minister agree that a letter of reprimand is not a sufficient deterrent for such a profound failure of care? We must ensure that sanctions are not just administrative slaps on the wrist, but robust measures that not just prevent reoccurrence, but punish willful neglect and cruelty. Just last month, the Honourable Member for North Ayrshire and Arran asked directly whether a letter of reprimand was adequate, and the Minister's answer referred to a compliance framework, but did not address whether this sanction was sufficient. So will the Government and will the Minister today commit to reviewing the effectiveness of current sanctions? On staffing, while I note the Government's commitment is in place to increase inspector capacity by March 2026, capacity is currently lower than the average over the last 10 years. So can we urge a focus on adequate recruitment? Now, turning to the 2025 strategy, the proposed 3 baskets approach provides a welcome roadmap. It is right that government moves quickly where mature technology exists, such as in skin irritation testings, and aims for total replacement by 2026. But I must sound a note of caution. We must ensure that we do not see countries with lower regulatory standards becoming industrialised for animal testing, because some products will continue to require it, and we must not rely on animal suffering being exported and happening elsewhere, because that will be under worse conditions beyond the reach of British regulation. That would not be a victory for animal welfare, but an abdication of responsibility. Can the Minister also share what steps are being taken to ensure products imported in this country have been developed to adequate standards? We all want to see the day, Mr Chairman, where animal testing is no longer needed. But until that day comes, we have a duty to ensure that every procedure is justified, every harm is minimised, and that every failure of care is met with the full force of a robust and well-resourced regulator, not a written nap on the knuckle. Thank you.
We now come to the Home Office Minister of State for Policing and Crime, Sarah Jones.
Thank you, Sir John. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And can I begin by congratulating the Honourable Member for Aberdeenshire North and Moray East for securing this debate. And can I thank my honourable friends for their contributions. I think it's important to start by reflecting on the horror of some of the stories that we have heard and some of the cases that have been reported in terms of animal treatment. I think I would question whether anybody in this House would want that to continue. I suspect we are all united in wanting to phase out animal testing and to get there as quick as possible. And I think it is understandable that there will be members in this House pushing the government to go much faster than we already are, but that we are also all heading in the same direction and trying to get the same outcome. And it is right and proper that campaign groups and that members of Parliament and others continue to push us to do everything we can, and we need to do that. What I think was interesting was that the transparency of that report was important. My friend from Newport West said so. We need to understand the picture. The more information we have, the more data we have, the more we can see where the challenges are. And I just want to agree with that point and say, yes, of course, we need more transparency on the system to make sure we get to where we want to get to as quickly as we can. Just to say at the start, you know, our laws, as the opposition spokesperson said, are unequivocal that animal testing cannot be authorised where a scientifically valid non-animal alternative exists. That is the law, and we need to make sure that's implemented. It's a fundamental principle, I think, to all of us in terms of the care that we have for our animals and the need to avoid unnecessary harm. As has also been said by the opposition spokesperson, at the moment, despite rapid progress in terms of science, there are not validated alternatives for every area of research and safety testing. And where testing... Yes.
And she says there aren't alternatives, but there are. We know there are alternatives. I mean, the forced swim test is a classic, and the LD50, we know these need to be phased out. We don't need them anymore. So I just would gently encourage the Minister to say how we can phase these out as quickly as possible.
Sarah Jane.
Can I thank my honourable friend for her persistence with me and expect her to continue to be persistent. Of course, there are things that we can go faster with than others, and I think that is what, and I'll come to the strategy that the government has published, which I think has been sort of broadly welcomed across the House, and how we want to go as fast as we can in the work that we do. Obviously, we're focusing today on the Animals in Science Regulation Unit and the annual report that they published. It's not actually a statutory responsibility for them to publish that report. Maybe it should be, but it's not. And I do welcome, as I said, the publishing of that annual report. Yes.
Thank the Minister for... So, John, can I thank the Minister for giving way? She's making an important speech, and I'm pleased to learn that, you know, pretty much everyone in this debate shares the vision of phasing out animal testing. Can I ask her two questions? One, does she think the Home Office has enough resources into tackling illegal and unethical animal testing? And secondly, would she work with the MPs in this debate to make that report a statutory requirement?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for jumping on something I said and holding me to account for it, which is very good. So we had a similar debate to this one, I think, last week or the week before, and what came out of that was, and again, I'll sort of come to this, but understanding that the regulator is going through a period of reform, increasing capacity. There are good things that are happening within that space, but there is concern amongst MPs that is not going fast enough or widely enough. In the last debate, last week or the week before, forgive me, I suggested that we should meet as a group of MPs with the regulator and have these conversations and try and flush out some of the things that MPs are concerned about. And in that debate, the MPs who were taking part in that debate hadn't had the opportunity to have those conversations with the regulator. So I took back as an action from that debate that we should sit collectively and have that conversation, which I'm very happy to do. The reason I'm not directly giving him the immediate response that he's asking for in terms of the statutory responsibility for the regulator and changing that is just because it doesn't sit within my remit. So it would not be for me to do. But what I want to do is to make sure honourable members are satisfied that we are going as fast as we can and as far as we can, and perhaps a meeting with the regulator is useful on that front. So the reform that I began to talk about that is overseen by my honourable friend Lord Hanson in the other place and was agreed last year has involved an increase, and members have rightly said, are there enough people focused on doing this work? We have seen an increase of inspectors from an average of 14.5 full-time equivalents in 2023 to 22 by March 2026. Now, by expanding its capabilities, it is able to do more. I think the conversation we would want to have with the regulator is, are they satisfied that that is enough, or do they think we need to go further? So I think the two-pronged approach of this government, which is firstly to phase out the use of animal testing, and I pay tribute to the campaigners pushing for Herbie's Law, and I absolutely understand the need for pace and the need for us to be held to account to go as fast as we can. But the strategy to phase out the use of animals alongside a more beefed up regulator is the response that this government is taking, and we want to maintain public confidence in our animal testing processes and in our research. And as the member from the opposition again, who I've now quoted 3 times, I need to stop quoting her so much, said, you know, we do need to make sure that the life sciences industry that is very important for this country is also not pushing animal testing abroad, and that we maintain our standards here. I heard the message from members about the fear that we might fall behind our European Union and our US colleagues in this space, and I'm very interested in working across government with DCIT and Lord Vallance, who are leading on the phasing out of animal research work, that we are pushing as hard as we can and that we are looking abroad. And I will take that back as another action to speak to my colleague Lord Vallance. I suspect honourable members already have, but just to make sure we are learning the lessons from other countries and that we're not falling behind, and that in fact we are keeping pace.
On that point, if I may, Sir John, the Minister, I am aware, will no doubt have highlighted the work of the government, and I know the government is committed to phasing out animal testing, but the Animals and Science Regulation Unit, their report actually highlights the horrors that we unfortunately have within the system. So does she not agree with me that we need to work now at pace to ensure that working with alternative methods are actually explored and implemented at pace?
I just say to the honourable gentleman, I'm a renowned for my generosity in the chair, and I'm extremely open-minded about how these things are conducted, but it's not really appropriate to come in 2/3 of the way through a debate and intervene when everyone else here took the trouble to get here at the beginning. We're all busy, after all. Minister.
Thank you, Sir John, and I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. Of course, we need to go as fast as we can. The strategy that the government has published which includes establishing a UK Centre for the Validation of Alternative Methods, includes 26 commitments for delivery or initiation across 2026 and 2027, and a commitment that from this year we will publish biennially a list of alternative methods research and development priorities, coalescing UK scientists around these areas and incentivising partnerships between research organisations. In the speech that debate that we had most recently on this subject, we talked about this being as well an opportunity for UK science and technology to be the innovators in this space and to push forward the new science that we want to go as fast as we can with, and we will move as quickly as the science allows, and our commitment is completely clear on that. We want to work in step with the scientific community to reduce and ultimately replace the use of animals in research. As honourable members will know, our regulatory framework in this space is a sort of three-pronged one where you have to have a personal licence. There's about 13,000 people who have a personal licence. The procedures themselves must form part of an approved programme of work. That must be licensed, and the work must be carried out in a licensed establishment. So we do have robust licensing in terms of the processes that people must go through before they do something as serious as test on animals. So even before a proposed project to test on animals reaches the regulator for consideration, it must undergo multiple layers of scrutiny to ensure it's justified and ethical, including from funders and animal welfare and ethical review bodies at scientific establishments. And I think that is important. The work of the regulator and the transparency that we want to deliver and the changes that we have pushed through, we want to get right. And the Animals in Science Committee, which is an expert committee which advises the government on animal protections, was commissioned by my noble friend Lord Hanson to provide recommendations on improving the accessibility of the publicly available animal testing project summaries and proposals and are now being considered, and this reflects our commitment to openness, accountability and continuous improvement. I think where honourable members made several points was around at what point audits are made and at what point people are being checks are being carried out, and the concern from members about self-reporting. And I think that is something that I heard in the previous debate, I've heard today, and is an important part of, I think, the conversation we need to have with the regulator. I think there is a question about unannounced audits and whether we are doing enough unannounced audits, and I think that is an important question and one which I am committed to go back and test. And I think, again, with the support of honourable members, we can look at that properly. As lots of members have already said, with 2.5 million procedures conducted in Great Britain in 2024, this is a big landscape and one we need to get right. The potential for error and the potential for wrongdoing, I completely understand and recognise, and I want to make sure honourable members are, and campaigners are, as satisfied as we can be that the regulator is doing what it needs to do. So there is a programme of reform which is underway. We do need to test that reform and see if it's enough. I am committing today to go back and speak to Lord Vallance and to speak and make sure we set up, and if any members here want to come to a meeting with the regulator, then I think that's important. The £75 million that has been put behind the programme to phase out animal testing, I think, is this government putting its money where its priorities are, and I know that honourable members across the House will welcome that. But of course we need to go as fast as we can, and to that vein I want to thank again the honourable member for securing this debate and for holding the government to account on these very important issues.
Thank you, Minister. I now call upon Seamus Logan to say a few words of summation. Seamus.
Thank you, Sir John. I just want to thank the speakers, the member for Newport West and Islin, if I pronounced that correctly, the member for Alloa and Grangemouth as my colleague who's no longer here once referred to it as the member for Alloa. Alloa and Grangemouth, the member for North Ayrshire and Arran, of course, and the member for Stockport, and the Liberal Democrat spokesperson, the Shadow Minister, and the Minister for a very thoughtful response. I can't think of many topics on which there is a tremendous cross-party alliance. The DUP, the Scottish National Party, the Liberal Democrats, and many members from the Labour Party. In fact, as you yourself said, Minister, virtually no MP would disagree with our intent here. So that's very, very encouraging. I'm particularly interested in a couple of your comments where you said where a non-animal alternative exists, no approval should be given. Absolutely. And you drew attention to the need to move as quickly as the science allows. And I'm sure the chair of the APPG noted your invitation to meet, particularly with yourself and Lord Valens, to discuss some of these issues. That would, I think, would be very welcome indeed. And it simply remains for me, before I thank everybody, to mention my own little pet Lola, our pet cockapoo. And if you know anything about dogs, you'll know how sentient they are, how clever they are, how they've got an amazing vocabulary. They can count. The only thing they can't do, Sir John, is speak, and more's the pity, although I think that's maybe not a bad thing in some ways. But just maybe conclude by saying thank you to everyone who took part and to those who attended from the general public. Thank you indeed.
The Honourable Gentleman, Minister and others might like to know there is some evidence to suggest that bees can count. I speak as a beekeeper. With that, the question is, this House has considered the Animal in Science Regulation Unit Annual Report 2024. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting